Hello, everyone. You're listening to TruthCat Radio at truthcatradio.com. The current time is 8:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast, USA. Although I'm broadcasting from Chicago in the U.S., my name is Richard Kary, and this is Beyond the Matrix. And I would also like to say hello to JP and everyone at Wolf Spirit Radio. We do have a simulcast. JP simulcasts this show, and I do want to say thank you to all you listeners at Wolf Spirit Radio and to JP. We do appreciate, your widening our reach, so to speak. Greatly appreciated. And well, tonight we do have a very interesting guest who I do want to share with you. And I'm going to get to the guest in just a moment here. I do need to first reach out and mention to you guys that we are completely listener supported. We are also having a bit of technical issues. We need some equipment at the moment. Some hard drives failed, and we're trying to make sure we can keep everything up and running. And we are completely listener supported. We don't accept any corporate advertising, and we're not monetizing in any way. All our archives are free out there on YouTube. That being said, so if you can, please support our station. We have a support page on our station website. URL is www.truthcatradio.com. And PayPal is accepted. A lot of people love the convenience of PayPal. Any little bit helps. In the world of the independent media, believe me, no donation is too small. A lot of times those last minute little extra donations are what really help keep us in the black, keep everyone paid and everything functioning properly. We love to have all these great guests for you. We're always trying to expand with new hosts and always try to bring a lot of excellent information completely uncensored to you. And yeah, that does require your listeners' support to ensure that there is no censorship, especially in this day and age. So please do whatever you can when you can. And please join our TruthCat Facebook groups. We have a TruthCat Radio page and a TruthCat page, and then our group is a great news group, TruthCats. And we do a lot of our advertising and promoting right now through Facebook, even though in some ways it's manipulated against us. We need to use their tools against the system. So please, those shares and those likes do help us out a lot there. And any other social media you can, spread our information. Please feel free to help out a bit. The call-in number, if anyone would like to call in with any questions or comments, that number will be 714-598-3125. That number again, 714-598-3125. Please be sure to turn off your radio when you do call in. Don't say anything when in the call-in queue, and I'll just invite you to speak from your area code. And once again, please help out and support the station with whatever you can. Now then, tonight we have Steven Douglas Whitener joining us. Steven has previously worked for and later tried to expose a company called AquaTech. AquaTech were initially involved with illegal dumping in South Carolina around 1989, 1990, and ultimately turned into a Superfund Site. Steven has since become an acute analyst of the control and perceptions within our society and corporate infrastructure. So we will be discussing environmental control. And Steven, it's a pleasure to have you here on the station. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here. I don't want to belabor the point you were making about the listener support, but I remember that you had a server crash last night. So there's a fairly urgent need at the moment, too, is there not?
Yes. Yeah. We do need a hard drive.
Okay. So everybody pony up and help these guys out. But yes, and the AquaTech, yeah, that was 1989 and 1990. I've never been called an acute analyst before, but you know, it did
Well,
open my eyes somewhat to the power behind the scenes and the fact that there's a different law for them and a different law for us. That some people act with impunity to exploit the rest of society and have been doing so for quite some time.
yes, and I've seen from a lot of your posts since then. In more recent times, as I've befriended you on Facebook over the months, over the last couple of years, really noticed a lot of your posts of a lot of important information, that a lot of people don't know about and need to. I actually had you in mind early on. It's funny, I should mention to the listeners, by the way, actually, this actually marks the year anniversary you're coming on the show for. So yeah, this will be the 50th.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I knew it was just about a year ago that the whole Truth Cat thing started. And I know it's been a struggle. I am very pleased that we almost have 5,000 members now in the Facebook group, and that's all. But that'll be a milestone. I don't know if they shut it off at that or not, but I believe they're going to change the rules with the Facebook friends and such. You have to have it's all a means to control the information. But yes, well, AquaTech, it was 1989, and
if you could explain, please, your
I didn't
background
look into this company when they hired me. They were working on an old landfill, and they had just bought out someone who had been reclaiming solvents and doing other things there. And I went in, they told me they were going to build a state-of-the-art facility, that they wanted me to contract out to have a certified lab and all these things. And in the meantime, while that was being done, would I just fingerprint check the shipments that were coming in and then sign the manifest, and they would send it off to some lab to certify it later. And I did this for a couple of weeks, and I had a Geiger counter calibrated and certified from Serene Engineering locally. And I rechecked some of the things I'd signed and found they were ticking. They were radioactive. And well, so those manifests I signed, I wanted those back. I didn't sign up for that. And, I guess that they never really offered me anything to go along with it. I just said, I want those back. And they said, we'll get them for you. Go out in the yard and check some cylinders. They kept gas cylinders out on pallets in a yard in the rain, very toxic chemicals. And I was inventorying those while they were allegedly gathering these manifests. And there was one that was leaking. It's hydrogen chloride. And I ended up with pneumonia for a month or so. And
wow.
When I finally got back to work, they didn't have any more need for me, and told me that what I found there to leave there, I end up back there. And well, being the stubborn person I am, I immediately called the DHEC and tried to contact the EPA, but no one seemed to be interested. It was a thorn in the side of the neighborhood where this company existed for a long time. They treated waste. The only thing that they really treated was explosive waste. If something came in that was going to blow up or catch fire, they would try to do something with it. And just previous to the time that I was there, they were just detonating things right on the ground, and it would just cause havoc in the neighborhood, rattle windows, annoy people, very dangerous. And it was an experience. It's been 30 years, it's a lot of it's kind of coming back right now. It was a scary time.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, even if it's a little emotional to revisit. No, yeah, if you could
I don't mind talking about it. I just
more of these examples, definitely.
I don't want to miss out on explaining it. I want to make sure that it's clear that this company, they were upfront. I don't know if they were spooks. I don't really know who they were per se, but they were from Wisconsin, and they came and bought this company that had been there for years called Gross Labs, where someone just reclaimed solvents and did things on the edge of environmental law. And it got to the point when the EPA was going to institute what they called the third of land ban regulations, that you couldn't landfill certain substances. That was going to come into effect shortly. And I think they were trying to get some things in under the wire for that. And also they would treat waste, or they would take waste in to be treated, and they would take money to treat it, knowing that eventually they would be closed down and be a Superfund site. And the example I give is that they would be paid, say, $1,000 to treat a drum of waste. And then about 9 months before they were shut down, they wrote a letter to the company and said, it looks like we're going to be a Superfund site. You know that the EPA can fine companies, blah, 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 and are going to be ostensibly bringing criminal actions against people. And if now you'd like to buy this waste you paid $1,000 to us to treat, you can buy it back for like $20,000. And that was part of the whole con that was going on. And I didn't realize that at the time. I just knew that I had signed some things that weren't what they said they were, and I didn't want my name on that. It was over a year later that I learned this is how the whole thing was operating. And when they fired me and told me to leave, I was intimidated and scared by this. I thought, oh man, they're going to get me. But the only thing I knew to do was to just try and tell people what was happening. But they didn't seem to be interested. The authorities I guess the neighbors had complained so much or something. I don't know why, but they didn't listen much. And it was just about a week after I was fired that the first accident happened that brought attention to the place again. There was a fire. There was some waste from a reaction that makes phosphorus trichloride. It's the phosphorus trichloride heels that are scraped from a reactor vessel. It's just a black tarry substance when the reaction is finished and the product is made. It's the waste product, and it's heavily contaminated with arsenic pentoxide. So this substance, if it even gets in moist air, it will catch fire. And they were treating this stuff like that. They would try to do something with, and they had metal drums of this, and 55-gallon metal drums, and they were in 85-gallon plastic overpacks. And I know how this accident happened. They were finished for the day, and they just didn't close that overpack enough, and the moisture got in and caught this stuff on fire. Firefighters were out there. There was this highly toxic smoke that no one ever talked about what was in the smoke. They evacuated a place, an area around the company, but it just nothing was done then. And so I called the media then and told them what I knew, but okay, nobody seemed to take any interest then. That was in February. Then April of 1990, there was another accident. There were 2 explosions there. One much larger, the second explosion very, very much greater than the first one. I guess I live maybe 5 miles from this. I don't know if it's that far, at least 2 or 3 miles from this facility. And when the accident happened, my father told me he has been standing out in the yard, and that the first one that he heard and the second one he felt that it almost knocked him down, and shattered windows, and it was on the news. Oh. And I was riding, basically was thinking that these people were going to get me, and I thought, well, what can I do about this? And I was riding by when I saw a news crew standing out in front of that company. I was showing somebody where this happened, and I just pulled up and went on camera and told them what I knew about this place. And it was it was quite a scene, because some of the employees that were over there, we were screaming back and forth at each other on camera and stuff. And then they interviewed them after I left, and they said, that guy, he was fired. He's a liar. And this was in April of 1990. And then finally in September of 91, the place was closed down, and they re-edited that interview with me and said that the facts should come as no surprise, because I tried to warn them before. But, for that, however long that was, April till the next September, I thought, man, I'm in danger. These people will get me if I'm not careful. So the only thing I knew was to try to hide in plain sight, but I don't believe I mattered at all. The people could do whatever they wanted. They were above the law. They were above local, state, and federal law. Some of the people there, I don't know who they were or what they were doing that was so that allowed them to do this, but it really opened my eyes and kind of shattered my faith in the world, I guess you would say.
Yeah, corporations and money. It seems to be
exactly
the ultimate power on the globe.
Yes, right. It it's right under the surface here. It's almost to the level of corruption and bribes like you have in third world countries in Indonesia or somewhere. I've talked to missionaries who were undercover in Indonesia. They say that every few months, that after their water has been running just fine, that it'll just slow to a trickle. And they'll have to go down to the water company and pay this bribe to somebody to get the water back on. And that same kind of corruption is underneath everything around us. It's endemic. The whole system is built on it. And I didn't, I knew that there was a real history to the world and a cartoon history to the world at this time, but I didn't realize how dangerous it was. And it was a heady time too. It was late '89. The Berlin Wall had fallen. Ceausescu in Romania. I thought, oh, it was like, hey, we won, but no, we didn't win. They are winning. We're just pawns in their game. And
so you went. So I mean, you went to various local media. You went to
yes,
EPA.
I did.
You mentioned EPA at one point.
Pardon me?
You mentioned the EPA as well.
Well, I tried to call them, and I talked to someone there, and DHEC, which is the state agency, eventually they sent some criminal investigators to talk to me, but nothing was ever prosecuted. Nothing was ever done. I made a call to the FBI. I guess they think I'm just a crackpot or a crank, or who knows. I don't know why nothing was done to these people, but they got away with it. And this happens very often. I mean, we know what happened in Mena, Arkansas, and the corporations that are just fronts. I don't know if that was going on or not. That kind of corruption. I don't know if it was that level, but something happened, and I was just nobody. It didn't matter what I said.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like all of the jurisdictions had been paid off. Basically, there was just too much money at stake. Too large a corporation at the head of this thing. Right?
I would think so. And the corporation was based from Wisconsin, so they were carpetbaggers anyway, I guess. Yeah,
And so AquaTech, and then what did you hear about what came of this? Because you mentioned they later turned into something else.
Well, no, they shut the site down and made it a Superfund site. I don't know whatever became of the corporation. I used to search when I first was able to get online. I searched for information about this, and it's probably been almost 20 years since I've done that. I haven't thought about it all that often. It was, I mean, the accident where I inhaled that hydrogen chloride gas, it burned my lungs, and I cough all the time now, and it really can make me very angry to think about that. It's just,
yeah. I mean, you had the health repercussions to address first and foremost.
When I came up the hill and I was coughing up this foam, and it was nasty tasting, like pool water, and they told me to drive myself to the urgent care. I should have insisted they call an ambulance right then, but I was young and and 10 foot tall and bulletproof or whatever, and I said, okay, well, I'm taking this guy with me just in case. And I just didn't pursue it enough. I didn't take it seriously enough at that time. I thought, oh, well, it's just an accident and they'll get those papers for me, and they don't really. But when I came back, I saw what they really were. It was an eye opener. And
maybe you could talk more about that point on, when you started waking up to more things because of that. The weeks and the months, the years that followed just after that, and how it started changing things for you.
Okay, well, even before then, I was aware of, I guess what I want to call it, the cabal, that the Federal Reserve was a private corporation, that the country was a corporation since 1871. I had read that history even before I got out of high school, but I didn't really understand what all that meant, how we are just pawns in the game, that we don't matter at all. We're just assets of the corporation. And it can be crushing to think about these things sometimes. My father was a soldier in World War II. He was in a unit called Merrill's Marauders, who fought behind Japanese lines in northern Burma for about 9 months, just living off airdrops. And we were a very famous unit. And he went through a lot in that war. And when he came back, he just hated war. He tried to teach me some things that were about the world that, just you didn't really pay attention to in the late 60s and early 70s as much as people seem to now. He gave me Smedley Butler's book when I was 11, and I read some other things. So I knew this, I don't know that there was something, as you say, beyond the matrix then, but I didn't understand how powerful and evil it was until I worked at this company. It just brought it all home for me. And I don't know, I started to investigate stuff when I would read constantly. And then I guess in 99 or so, I started getting online at the library and researching things. And it just goes deeper and deeper. It's like the truth is like an onion. You can peel away a layer, but there's always something underneath. And I don't really, it just leaves me baffled sometimes. I can get lost in it. I know it's been a burden to me ever since then. I have never had any real success since then. I'll try to blame that on me. I own my own stuff, but it can be very disheartening. I see how people could be discouraged, and the way the mainstream media dumbs people down and they poison us with toxic chemicals, and it's just, it's very, very frustrating. I don't know what to do about it. It's just, it's like fighting against the tide or something. The tide is going to keep coming in. The waves keep coming, and it's like you can't stop it. I guess you just decide which ones you're going to surf or something. I don't know.
The best way I can see it sometimes, Stephen, is thinking of it like a pendulum. With that yin yang approach that, good at least will push back the tide 50% of the time, and it'll swing back at the very least. And we all are learning a lesson from this, but we can be part of that tide pullback. I think with things just like this here, I'm glad to have you on the show tonight. Like I said, I loved a lot of the things that you've shared over the months I've been friends with you on Facebook there. And yeah, this is the 53rd week of Beyond the Matrix. So it exactly marks the second year beginning for my
awesome
show. And
that's great, man. I hope that more of this springs up, that this control grid that they've created comes back to bite them. Because you were talking about the way I noticed things had changed after that event. It's like it seems that the whole planet or whatever, everything went through a point of inflection between, say, 95 and 2001, after the World Wide Web started, and just things just changed since then. I don't believe there's been any decent music made since 2001, not popular music. Everything's auto-tuned now, and it's all this digital matrix, like you say, just a false reality. I remember, I guess it was 95 or 96 that this act passed that allowed all of the media corporations to merge basically into one giant corporation. And they're worse than Pravda was in the Soviet Union. It's like the saying that they had, there was no truth in Pravda and no news in Izvestia. That's pretty much true for all the mainstream media now. And I remember back in the 90s, Aaron Russo was at his Constitution Party, and he was making those films. He said that the Rockefeller guy came to him and told him what was going to happen. There's going to be this event. And from that, they were going to be able to just go and do all this military stuff in Afghanistan and Iraq. And he says, why do you want to do that to the guy? And he says that basically they wanted to put a chip in everybody, that they could control all of their money with that and follow them around and listen to what they do, to observe what they bought, just to control everybody. And if we objected, then they just turn our chip off. And this guy told him that was going to happen. And then shortly after, 9/11. And at that time, nobody would. And
even before, just to cut you for a second there, Stephen, even before 9/11, when you bring up the Pravda in the Soviet Union, but yeah, back at the time when this AquaTech incident happened, the collapse of the Soviet Union happened around that era. The age you are and the age I am, but more so maybe the age you are, the amount you've seen, there's so many parallels, in this country now to the collapse of the Soviet Union back then.
Yes,
all
very
the
much
infighting
so.
in the government. Yeah, I don't know. So if you have any commentary on, any more commentary on that era and what you learned from it before moving on to 9/11, because I just think the parallels are striking now in this economy, political system, media.
I believe what brought down maybe not the Soviet Union, but definitely Romania was Hollywood. They in Romania, it was a very closed off, just super paranoid control grid there, and people would bootleg VHS tapes, and they would gather in their apartments, and they would pay a little fee and come in and watch Western movies. So they could see these Western movies, and even the people who were censoring the official channels were
Hey, Steven, hang on a second. Hi, Steven.
Yes.
Hey, listen, I didn't hear Richard. Richard, did your audio go off here or something? What's going on? You're awful quiet. Could you say something for me?
Hello.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Can you hear me now?
Well, I couldn't tell if you were being your usual, slow response, or you actually lost your audio. But did you lose your audio there for a second?
I don't think so. Have you been hearing all my questions?
Yeah, I've been hearing you. Yes.
Oh, okay. I apologize, Sam. There just seemed like there's a big lag there, and I had to jump in there because I thought for a second Richard might have lost his audio. That's sort of like it.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Sorry, guys. Carry on.
That's all right. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. In Romania, there was a underground theater in different people's apartments. They would buy a VHS player, and this was the underground economy. So they could see from Western movies that their government was lying to them about the conditions here. And, when it all finally crumbled. In fact, even the Soviet Union, that was some of the most sought after Western information were video movies. And people saw that what they were telling them was just not true. And they knew it wasn't true. And I don't know, just one crack in that wall. Gorbachev came in and just opened it a little, and they said, okay, we're leaving. This is done. And it fell. And I suspect that a similar event may happen with the empire that we have now. Call it the USSA or the petrodollar or whatever. This military control, it will either blow up the planet or I don't know. I don't know.
I know that there was a lot of spreading of the lies of the government back in the USSR through fax machines. They were utilizing to a large degree, and to find out a lot of what they were being propagandized with, and the truth of what was really going on, and explaining why they were all in so much poverty as well. And there's a strong parallel, I think, there and now with this internet that's gotten so far out of the control of the government that they never intended, and it's just taking so long to get to a culmination, a boiling point, as it were, I think. But please, if you could continue where you were there and then move on to what you were going to say about 9/11, it'll be great.
Okay, yeah. Well, the parallel is even with the Iranian Revolution. It was the cassette tape. They would trade the sermons of the Ayatollah Khomeini to bring down the Shah. So once the truth is exposed, it's like you see the emperor has no clothes. And I don't know what it will take for it to, it's coming. 9/11 fooled people for a minute. It fooled me for a second. But just a few days later, it's like, wait, that building couldn't have fallen that way. And people just, I don't know if they believe that a plane hit the Pentagon still. Some people believe Oswald is the only one that shot Kennedy. I don't know how people, I guess they just don't want to know. They want to take that blue pill instead of the red one. But enough people are waking up now to this that something drastic will have to be done to keep us down. I remember, let me go back to Aaron Russo and what he said about the chip, that they wanted to implant a chip in everyone to track us and our money and what we did and said. And at that time in the 90s, you would say, oh, we'll never go for that. That'll never happen. They'll never get that done to us. And now 2017, not only do we have the chip, we pay them for it, we pay them to maintain the network, and we carry it around with us. It's this smartphone here. That's basically what it is. And the only hope I see for now is that this grid that they've built, that they can spy on anyone, listen to anyone, or watch anyone, is that it'll come back to bite them, because we'll be able to see what crimes they've committed too. All these leaks. I don't know if that's controlled too. It may all be, it's like that next layer of the onion. It's hard to know what's going to happen next. Sometimes things just take me completely by surprise. The fall of the Berlin Wall did.
We had this. I was going to say we have this NSA too that's supposed to be, ultimately looking out for crime prevention and for our welfare, is what it's sold to us as, but really to keep us in check, really, to keep an eye on us before anyone gets any uppity ideas.
Absolutely. Try to keep us from divided and unorganized.
And it seems like we don't get any help when we hear about any of these, these different viruses, ransomware.
Yes.
That comes out these days. The NSA, the CIA, they have FBI rather have no help that they can offer us. They say pay the ransom in those cases, the best that they can offer. That they're admitting that either these cyber criminals are far more intelligent than they, or they're admitting that they are. And in a lot of cases, it seems like that the NSA is behind a lot of. I know the Equation group was linked to the NSA. That was one example of a hacker group that was doing harm to individuals that was based in the government. I don't know if you've heard of any other stories like that.
Well, no, but it reminds me of Buy Back Your Waste, from AquaTech. It's just the same kind of con. It's like we're in control of both sides of this equation, and we're going to profit from both sides of it. That group that's in the know or in power.
So after AquaTech, what were some of the first other topics you started delving into? Obviously, environmental hazards from corporations, and waste disposal was the first with that. But then after that, what were some of the other topics, that first, you first thought were important, still do today?
Well, after the Soviet Union fell, I thought things might get better. But it became more of the domestic front with Ruby Ridge and Waco that took my attention. It was, I believe that there was a plan to. In fact, I know that there was a Operation PatCon where they were infiltrating patriot groups in the United States in the 90s, and we had Ruby Ridge, and then Waco. I believe McVeigh was an agent, and that was a setup. That's when the Patriot Act was written for Oklahoma City. And what opened my eyes a lot to what was going on there was when they had this standoff in Montana around a cabin of a group that called themselves the Free Men, who basically were trying to expose that the government was a corporation and we've been lied to. And they were infiltrated by a couple. One guy was a former DEA agent, and he had cut one arm off somehow, and him and his wife became part of this group, and they wrote a book years later called False Prophets about the experience. And at the point that compound in Montana in the winter was surrounded by the feds, and it was all over the news, he said that the feds themselves were surrounded by militia. And things, I believe, they came to a head at that point. And for some reason, they didn't follow through with the whole agenda when Clinton was in office. I don't have any inside information about these things. These are just things that I've read and learned myself. I'm not, I don't claim to know anything about that, just what this guy's words were. And I saw him on the news at the time. But the way the federal government was operating during the 90s, I think it comes through in that book and the things that happened to him. That was another eye opener after this experience at AquaTech, when I personally had no power at all and just didn't seem to matter. I thought that I was in danger, but, I guess since I wasn't going to testify against the Clintons or whatever, I didn't get suicided or they didn't care. I just didn't matter. And then I see that this goes on too, that
you mentioned the Clintons, and I can't help but mention that I noticed today is actually the anniversary of Vince Foster's death.
Oh.
And he's a very noteworthy individual in the Clinton body count. I don't know have you followed that story at all back then?
Yeah, well, yes. What the best I could make from that is that he at least died somewhere else and was moved to that park. I don't know what he was going to bring out, but I don't believe he committed.
Oh yes, certainly he didn't commit suicide. I have a gentleman who's been a recurring guest on my show. He has his own show. And he actually lost his career in Hollywood for just casually talking about the inconsistencies with the official story when the Vince Foster incident happened. And that pretty much changed his career without his choosing because of it. He had a pretty nice Hollywood career before that in animation, with the early days of computer animation. But he's pretty knowledgeable and has a great article on his website. Michael Rivero and the What Really Happened website.
Oh yes, I've seen his. I get notifications for his show. I believe What Really Happened.
Okay,
I'll have to check that out.
He's very knowledgeable on the Vince Foster incident because he was definitely attacked by the deep state for even casually bringing it up, at the lunch table and this and that around coworkers, and it was innocently enough at the time. But the Clinton body count, he's covered that a lot too, and it's like, God, I want to say it's around 200 without exaggeration. There's some great articles he has on his site about that and a lot of Clinton corruption.
I remember when Jennifer Flowers had the Clinton body count on a website back in the late 90s. And it was pretty extensive then. I don't know how these people get away with it. It's just George.
And
I don't know.
Right now we have the Seth Rich situation, which keeps getting more information out that's going against the official story. Once again, it's so obvious in a lot of these cases that they're not suicides or accidental deaths or whichever the case may be. I mean, they're still holding in the Seth Rich.
The videotape and everything. Very inconsistent with the story. But what the mainstream media talks about is Russia, Russia, Russia. It's just.
So no, but I'm sorry that if I cut you off again a few minutes back. If you do remember what where you were still wanting to cover next.
Well, I remember the thing in the late 90s when Aaron Russo was told that they wanted to chip everybody, no one would have believed that it would happen, but it's been accomplished with smartphone technology in the NSA. Their control grid is pretty much in place, but they also are vulnerable themselves, and maybe that will give a crack. Maybe that will give some light to what's going on. But since they control that and the ransomware, I just don't know. I get very frustrated thinking about the overall state of the world. I have to take my solace where I can. I have, the grandkids and whatever. I don't know that there's anything I can do to fight against that. It's like, I know that the things in my life that I've been the most ashamed of, that caused me the most pain, have been when I abused someone I had power over, or if I hurt someone that I had authority over. That's just realizing how I've been hurt by these people in power. It just makes me, I just don't want to do that. And I believe that was a large part of my dad's experience after he'd been a tool over in World War II. He just didn't want to do that either. And that,
he had a different opinion of the U.S.'s role and all of that, I take it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I haven't found much success in my life, and from the outside, it doesn't look like. But today, if I'm okay with being who I am, then I've succeeded and they don't win. That's the best I can do about this. You know, that's it. The ultimate point I've come to is like, okay, you're evil. I'm just going to do the most good I can, even though I mess up, and you know, it's just the best I can do. And I get very frustrated when people are blind to what's going on, and I want to say, shake them and say, wake up, you know, and that just doesn't work.
Well, you mentioned that you, as far as being awake, you mentioned how you noticed right away within a couple of days of analyzing that, 9/11 didn't make sense. I mean, even though you weren't an engineer, I know there's a group of engineers out there now who, the media is trying to hide from the public eye, but I mean, yes, you knew very early on, even in that case.
I knew it was very fishy. Okay, I had heard that they were going to have an attack. They were going to blame Osama, that he had come out and declared war on the U.S. that summer. And this journalist had gotten in and filmed him, even though the intelligence agencies are supposedly looking for him. He went in and filmed him. So that all seemed suspicious and fishy, that they knew who did this right afterwards. And then Building 7 with the pullet, you know, just the thing falling. I remember that day, a friend called me and said that he wasn't going to be making his run to New York, that a plane hit the World Trade Centers. And I said, oh, a plane hit the tower. And he said, both of them. And I turned the TV on, and then, that is like, what's happening? This is just, it was incredible. And so it didn't add up looking back at the footage when they would play it again. But what really convinced me that it was all a sham was the anthrax letters. When people started talking about some of the inconsistencies, I know that there was a big expose of the Israeli connection on Fox News soon after that. And some of the people who were talking, that broke all got the anthrax, and it's like they were being threatened and silenced. And the anthrax was military grade. That just, you know, that doesn't point to a cave in Afghanistan and a bunch of jihadis. It just didn't add up. Something was suspicious.
So even early on, the whole. Hang on. Oh, sorry. Hold that thought. Early on. Remember, early on.
Okay.
Hold on. Hey guys, how you doing? Hey, guess what, Richard?
What?
I'm gonna go run off and go buy me a hard drive. All right.
Oh, great! Excellent.
Awesome, man.
That before you get all excited.
Thank you, listeners.
Right. Yeah, listeners. No, listeners, we're not out of the woods yet. Come on. All right, I raised about $80. I still need about $40, but I'm kiting. You know, we're doing. Yeah, you know what I mean. You're playing some games, man. Anyway. I gotta get that thing right now. I'm gonna run down there and get that thing, okay? Because there's a place nearby. It's in stock, and it's ordered online.
You know a dude.
Yeah.
But
you know a guy.
I know a guy who knows a guy. No, it's nothing like that. But no, it's good. It's high quality stuff. See, that's the thing. I got to have high quality stuff. Otherwise, I would have gone cheap. But anyway. But see, if I ordered it online, then you never know. But this place, I actually found it for like $6 less than I would have got it for online. So I'm pretty, and it's a big store. Anyway. But and somebody's going to loan me $40. I got to obviously come out. I still need $40, listeners. Yes, and actually we're kind of in the negative. Truth Cat's a little bit in the negative. I know it sounds so pathetic, but that's we're a little charity operation. We operate on a shoestring. So yeah, as of right now, we don't really have any reserves. So if I got hit with a bill from our server or whatever, I don't think it's closer to the end of the month. Maybe I won't get hit, but we like to have money sitting there for those bills that show up, automatic payments. So yes, we do need a few more bucks, but a couple people did kick in $60 today, which was a pretty big deal. And that's like half of the hard drive right there. So, right? Hey, so hopefully after my show, see, the store's going to close by the time my show's over. So I got to do this right now. And you know how I just love stressing out before my show. Oh. So Richard, hold the fort until I get back. Okay.
Will do, sir.
And everybody, yes, please help us out. We need a few more bucks. This is really ridiculous stuff. Okay, it's really sad. Anyway, please help us. Thank you for the 2 people though that did contribute. But out of all you guys listening, please, we could use a couple more bucks. All right, thank you so much. And Richard, tell them how they can contribute. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later.
Yeah, folks, anyone who can help us out and contribute, if you go to our support page at www.truthcatradio.com, you'll find a PayPal option, which is a very secure, convenient way. A lot of people love the ease of PayPal transactions. Please do help us out and keep things running here with whatever you can, even if it's a small donation. We do appreciate and could really benefit, from anything you could spare, especially a time like now where we had a bit of some technical issues, which needed some extra funds to keep everything working and replaced. That was needed and is needed. And anyone who does use Facebook, we do a lot of our promotion through Facebook. So please, all those shares and likes are very helpful. We have a Truth Cats group, which a lot of people have been posting a lot of great links, articles, and information through. It seems to be catching on quite well. Please utilize that, and please like and share our Truth Cat Radio page and our Truth Cat page. And then, of course, the Beyond the Matrix page would be appreciated as well. We have our current lineup beginning Mondays on Truth Cat Radio. And see, that will be beginning 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Violet Vision with Sava Wolf. And Sava is followed at 8 p.m. by Shima with Metaphysics and Moore. And Shima is followed, of course, at 10 p.m. by Joan Hangarder with Angel Essence. And then we have our Tuesday lineup. Tuesday lineup begins 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Daryl Nichols with Daryl. And, of course, that's followed now at 10 p.m. We have Mystic Freedom with Dave Robbins. Please check out both Daryl and Mystic Freedom. They always have a lot of enlightening information to share, and we're very honored to have both these gentlemen with the station. We currently have some spots we are refilling in the middle of the week. That brings us currently to Thursdays, which we've been still looking forward to the Donbass Hour, depending on what the situation is able to be with David Simpson and the Donbass Hour over there. I know it can be pretty tough trying to do a show from a war zone, but we appreciate any continued broadcasts and consistencies we can have for the Donbass Hour. That's 4 p.m. on Thursdays, Eastern Standard Time. And then Graham Sutherland, of course, at 6 p.m. Thursdays with Delete the Beast. Do check out Graham. He has excellent perspectives, broadcasting from Inverness in Scotland. Graham has been an avid study of this whole unveiling of information we've been undergoing in this generation. And he has an excellent group as well, the Real Worldwide Truth Movement on Facebook. I recommend his group as well as Truth Cats as some of the great go-to places, for a lot of people to share a lot of links and websites, articles. And then, of course, it comes right back here to 8 p.m. And that's Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary, followed on Thursdays at 10 p.m. with the ultimate Stephen D. Kelly, with the Stephen D. Kelly Show, who is, of course, Truth Cat Radio's founder and station manager as well. And do check out Stephen's show and all that he has to share. He will be coming on in just about 1 hour here So do stick around for that. Well, no, it looks like that's all of the basic announcing for the station. And please help out. We are trying to get a couple of hard drives. We're actually getting the one at the moment, getting another hard drive as soon as we can raise the funds to start having a more efficient backup system. And of course, just to keep the bills and everything running here, I forgot there was one other, just small technical addition Steven mentioned the other day. But please, as I said, PayPal on our support page, truthcatradio.com. Greatly appreciated with whatever you can spare to keep all this information flowing to all of us. Well, that being said, I would like to return. Tonight we have Steven Douglas Whitener as our guest. And Steven, I'm sorry, did I give you enough of a break there?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, everybody send your shekels to Truth Cat Radio. They really can use them.
Thank you for that.
Yes, please do. I mean, it's amazing that all around the world, I mean, from the war zone, you have a show from Scotland, the technology that allows people to link up together to do that. That's a new weapon to be used against the deep state, and I hope it will be their undoing. I don't know. I didn't realize that the hosts were from so many disparate places, but that's awesome that the technology exists to do that. And you mentioned that the Don Boss show, I saw that that region had announced they were going to declare their sovereignty or offer a peace plan, that they would become Little Russia. I think it's Malorussia or something. I don't know what will come of that, but I did see that the guy announcing it said that was their first and last offer. So that situation may be coming to a head soon.
Yeah. I'm looking at that with a very suspicious analysis. I thinking that my instincts are saying don't really know what. Don't try to interpret it too soon. Basically, see how it plays out, to see what motives and agendas are really behind everything. We have, the EU that doesn't seem to be in the best interest of any of the states of Europe. Obviously, we have a parallel that's been going on for a long time now, where the original 50 states in this country no longer have the sort of sovereignty that they were originally written to have with this nation. They would have been better off keeping it a little more clear. I think that they're separate nation states as Europe before the EU. So I don't know. I see a very interesting parallel there. It's been whittled away over generations. I mentioned your age being very fortunate. I think that the era. Well, I myself, I'm about 40. I'm 40 right now, but you being right about
I'll be 57 in September.
Yeah, so right about that age. I guess I don't know. I guess it would be fair to say it's the baby boomer generation.
Just at the very tail end of the baby boomers. Yeah.
Yeah, and so right before baby boomer and right before Generation X, or which I'd be part of there. But you saw, and we mentioned Russia earlier, all over the news now. The corporate media that we know is full of it with no real information, but they go for those sound bites, that the people who don't have time to look into the news are just going to listen to and assume that's the truth. So when they're paying for their parking ticket downtown, or they're over, at Dunkin' Donuts or the train station with CNN on with this, heading across the screen saying no reason to doubt Russia hacked the election, they assume, that's the truth, and go home, and I'm busy now with my family and I don't have time for anything else. So and they're counting on that, that's the problem. But you're old enough, is my point, to be aware of McCarthyism. And,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big story in the 50s, right before I was born, but there was
right. Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, you were aware of the generation, just before you, from your parents and that, and just what had endured, because you were very close to that at that time period still, and I'm sure you're very, so therefore very aware of that. I hear that that like the boomer generation was taught the sun never shined in Russia. It was, it was that extreme, So, you must see the parallels these days. If you could, shed some light on your perception from the past and to present.
Well, when I was born in 1960, there was still Jim Crow in the South where I'm from, and it was a completely different world. It was in the midst of great change, but I think that the war that killed going overseas just for patriotism and because we need to was Korea, not so much Vietnam, but that I saw that whole thing happen when I was just a kid, right before I was a teenager. I remember Kent State very well, and man, the country almost came apart that summer. There were the people think that there are riots now with the Antifa little, and that is nothing. I mean, New York City was almost a war zone. It was it was pretty scary to see that National Guard troops were out on Kent State and shooting kids. And then right after that, they shot kids in Jackson, Mississippi, and down in Orangeburg. And it was a very scary time. And that influenced my thought early on, too. As you mentioned, the Red Scare, I remember one of the first things I read was from my church library was Masters of Deceit, which was all about the Reds everywhere. And I mean, yeah, there were a lot of Reds everywhere, but they used the Reds back then as a scare the same way they are using the jihadis today to just terrorize the population, to give us some enemy to focus on so that we won't focus on the man behind the curtain, so to speak, the ones who are profiting off our misery. And as I grew up, things changed around here vastly because there was a separate entrance at the movie theaters, colored entrance and colored water fountain. I remember when I was like, I guess 3 or 4 years old, I was at the doctor's office and they had a colored waiting room, and I was in that waiting room playing with the people, and I got into big trouble for that. You're not supposed to be in here, and all that changed. And when I was in about the 4th, 5th grade, then the schools integrated, and it wasn't nearly as bad as it was when they were busing people up north in the 70s, ironically. And that's what was done to the black population then. It's like a beta test for all of us, because even though black folks in the South then were second-class citizens, they were discriminated against in horrible ways, they had families and they had a community, and they had, since the end of slavery, they had started to build a community. And then they came in and they said, okay, well, we're going to give you some welfare money, but you can't have the father in the home. So we're going to destroy this structure you have. We're going to give you equal rights, but we're going to destroy your community to do it. And I believe that's what they're trying to do to the whole world. I don't know, this universal basic income they're talking about now could be the same kind of trap that was. I don't know, but I see a possible parallel there. I don't know. There are some good things about that too, because money is just a scam. It's just worthless. 80% of the economy right now is in fiat. I mean, credit swaps and just financial funny stuff. 20% of the economy is actually the economy, and it's just huge. And they're hoarding the money. The money velocity is at a very low level now. Not a lot of economic activities happening, and I think that whole thing is primed for a collapse. I don't know.
They just keep making money out of thin air, devaluing all of our dollars in the process at this point, just to keep up the system.
I remember one of the things that happened right after the year after Kent State was when Nixon came on the TV and said, we're temporarily suspending trading dollars for gold, and we're going to put in some wage and price increases and stuff. And And I witnessed basically the birth of the petrodollar, although I believe that even goes back to Bretton Woods. But that was their solution. They will prop that up, and people will have to get our dollars.
Domination of the U.S. dollar, right?
Yes, and so then we'll be able to buy stuff cheap because they got to get our dollars to get the oil, and we've been living off that con game since then, and it's all about to fall all around the world.
Well, we don't produce anything anymore. When you were a child, this nation produced things.
Absolutely, and it's a shame. When I was growing up, there were textile mills all across the South. There was, it wasn't. People had better lives, I think. Even then, the technology should have made things better, but I don't think they have.
Yeah.
They've driven us
standard of living.
Apart.
Right, yes. You could get more with your dollar back then. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
By far. And I mean, I guess what I was cut off in the first hour just to finish was just, well, when you were mentioning 9/11, and it sounded like at first you said some of the even mainstream news were covering those dancing Israelis, for example.
Yes.
And so they weren't even all in sync at the beginning in the corporate media. It took like about 48 hours, 72 hours at least before they were all in sync and put in line, given the official marching orders from above, basically, on a lot of these issues. So a lot of those inconsistencies were getting out in those first, say, 48, 72 hours after 9/11. A lot of people like yourself were already picking up on and questioning. But go ahead.
I remember a website that was active then I think it was called psyop.org or .com, and their little moniker or logo was the flying pig from the Pink Floyd Animals album flying right into the World Trade Center, and they were completely debunking everything that they could, and they disappeared within 6 months after the attack. I don't know. I guess they just were not socially acceptable anymore. The flags came out, and we were all united, and they're singing God Bless America there while the war was planned in Afghanistan after the Taliban had basically turned down the Tapi pipeline, I believe. I'm not sure if that's what happened, but the Taliban was here meeting with Bush before that whole event, and maybe
Isn't it the longest occupation, Afghanistan, that we have in history?
Yes, it's the longest one I'm aware of. Yes.
Wow. And you bring up all the Russia bashing now, but I know Afghanistan. It's clear that the poppy production always seems to go back and swing when America's occupying. And we have footage and confirmation of U.S. troops guarding the fields. Basically, the CIA is the biggest drug dealer, and Afghanistan has been very profitable.
Exactly. Prohibition is that's big business for this deep state. I don't know that they would ever completely go cashless because they wouldn't have a way to. If everything was exposed and the transactions were all above board, we'd see what they were doing, and I don't know how that will come down. But,
for a long time, the only sort of potential conflict we had with Russia was how, a lot of times they'd be in support of Afghanistan, and of course it's right at their border as well.
Mm-hmm.
But now, in so many ways around the globe, we have people scapegoating Russia and even trying to start up a real hot war at the same time in the current era. It really seems unprecedented how reckless a lot of these leaders in the West are toward war with Russia at the current era. I mean, can't you confirm that this? At least from what we're aware of with the age of the internet, I don't think that they were quite this reckless in the past, even though they still didn't value human life. It's really ridiculous now. You mentioned all the Russia bashing. What do you have to say?
Well, I think they've gotten away with this for so long that they've started to smoke their own dope, so to speak. They believe the things that they're saying and the media backs them up now. Like you said, they got in sync right after 9/11. It's like at the end of the Rush song 2112, where they say, "We have assumed control." It's almost like they all got in lockstep and they were backing everything up. You can see over the years since then how the media has slanted the story. From 2008 with the Georgian invasion of South Ossetia, that was displayed as Russian aggression, that they were going into another country to protect an ethnic minority. And the last time this happened was in Poland in 1939. Putin, Hitler, blah, that was their story. I remember on Fox News, they were interviewing somebody that was in South Ossetia that was driven out, and they were praising Russia and said the Georgians attacked us and they just cut them off. And nope, that doesn't match our narrative. We can't say that. And so that was just, and during the Olympics, I mean, it's like these people, it's gone to their head. And I hope that they will fall. I hope they will pay the piper for what they've done to this world. It very much saddens me on that level. And it doesn't have to be this way. One of the first things that I learned as I was growing up, when I became aware of this, I read Buckminster Fuller and the books he wrote, Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth, and then The Critical Path. And then right before he died, he wrote one called Grunch of Giants, which the Grunch was the grand universal cash heist of the giants, which were the corporations and the money masters who were just extracting the wealth from everyone for themselves. And it was right before he died, and he thought we were on the verge of war with the Soviet Union then. And it was very revealing. He said that the technology had existed since the early 1970s, that if it was used not to kill everybody and make weapons, if it was used to enhance life, that it would provide an ever increasing standard of living for every human being on Earth without the use of fossil fuels or nuclear energy, or for anyone having to quote unquote earn a living. And he was a brilliant man, and that possibility exists, but instead these psychopaths just want it all for themselves, and they want to wipe us out and inherit the earth. For they want to become gods. I believe these people that are behind the scenes. I do believe that they actually are just evil.
It seems that the wealthiest don't truly feel wealthy unless everyone else is pushed more and more into poverty. Is what it comes down to. It's really an illness and an addiction. They need to get that rush, that high, just like anyone else with an addiction, and that's the only way their brain gets that high anymore. Power.
The ultimate, Kissinger called it the ultimate aphrodisiac, but I think it's the ultimate or narcotic. It's just, and it corrupts you just like any other addiction. And these people have been in power for so long that they're about to hit rock bottom with that addiction. They believe these things, and there's nothing more for them to do but destroy the world. That's why they are confronting Russia. Also, it's because the petrodollar is about to fall, and people are ignoring it and trading gold for oil and food.
Russia and China are completely operating independent of the U.S. dollar now. It's up and running. It just fully got kicked off. So. Yeah, they're panicking as far as,
and they're very dangerous for this. I mean, on the one hand, I think that they're panicking and they see that it's all about to crash, and on the other hand, they're still getting the high off power, and they need more and more to feel that high. And I don't know.
Well, Putin really seems to be anti-globalist, and I mean, he really is trying to look out for his own people. They're not in poverty; they're actually becoming the standard living, what you can get with the average, wage, what your money's worth is. Things are improving in Russia. You can tell Putin's caring for his people. I mean, in hindsight, even Hitler's Germany, they called it the German miracle, and he was sharing that wealth with the people. What we have in America today is the corporations and the government lined up against the people.
Absolutely.
The very opposite. So true fascism.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. Even in Hitler's Germany, they did not base the currency under that regime on gold or anything. It was almost a resource-based economy where it was based on the labor of the people. And discounting all the other things that went on there, the economic miracle was not fueled by the military buildup. It was the opposition to that economic recovery that fueled the military buildup, as well as the megalomania of some of the leaders. But
And we've been seeing. Oh, go ahead.
That was an early. The history of World War II was a real early obsession of mine because my dad had fought in it. So that the story that we've been told is not completely accurate. You know, it's a cartoon version of what happened. The Hollywood version is very different than the way it was. You know, even
the world wanted to demonize Germany. They had it out for Germany in before World War I broke out, for World War I for that matter, and then again for World War II. So it's not like Hitler got it in his head all by himself to try to destroy the world or something, but that's what they would have us believe. It fits their narrative, you know, just clean cut, good guy, bad guy, like you say, like a child's story, and we can all go home. That's a history lesson.
Right. The history is a lot more complex than that. There ain't no good guys. There ain't no bad guys. They're just you and me, and we just disagree the way that song said. Things are definitely more complex than they're displayed. But like you mentioned, people getting their snippets from sound bites. They don't get the whole story, and they don't investigate. You know, they're numbed out and I don't know. A lot of people are waking up, though. I believe that they would have us believe that more people are asleep than are awake. And I believe that because I talk to more and more people who are aware of this. Even this young kid, when I was at a restaurant the other night and paying, and I told him, you know, when I was in high school, I could take a date out for dinner and a movie and put gas in my car for $10, and I was giving him like 25 for me and my and Wendy to eat there. And he would say, yeah. He said, you know, stuff ain't worth anymore. The money's just worth less. And he's just a kid. And I thought, yes, that's right. So maybe there is hope.
Yeah. Some of the young people are getting the point. There's so much more. I have optimistic and pessimistic views simultaneously these days. More people are waking up. You're very right. And this internet, just like the fax machines in the USSR, it's something that, you know, it's a Frankenstein monster that cannot be stopped by Big Brother anymore, basically. But we also.
That's true. I hope that's true. Yes.
We also have such a power grab now, a conglomeration of power. I mentioned the true fascism we're seeing now in America and in parts of Europe, you know, where the corporate wealth and government power are aligning together against the people and any independent businessmen and individuals in general.
The seizure of assets, just reinstating the seizure of assets that, if we find your money, we're going to take it. We're assuming you got it some other way. And I was just shocked.
The civil forfeiture. Yeah, there's
I heard a local talk show discussing that while I was driving the other day, and some guy called in and said, well, if you just got your receipts there and you can prove where it came from, it's like, why should you have to? You know, some people, I don't know if he was trolling the person, but it's just, I don't understand.
I think my greatest hero of the past few hundred years would without a doubt be Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the man succeeded in taking out the Federal Reserve, something that the children aren't even educated about these days with Common Core, of course.
No, and they want to take him off that $20 bill. They sure do.
But I mean, he succeeded, and we need to get to that point again. So
yes.
We've had so much of a power grab, both with losing the freedom to print our own currency. And then, 1973, I mean, I'm sure you're aware, the Healthcare Act, it made it legal for healthcare companies to be for-profit organizations, hospitals.
Yeah, HMO, the HMO, yes.
Yeah, and now we're, there's attempt with these trade agreements, which are anything but free trade agreements. And just say, such a, a conglomeration with so many different corporations. And your generation has seen so much of this final power grab attempt as well, as maybe their pendulum finally is starting to run out of steam, but is struggling as much as it can to hold on as long as possible. Surely, so I mean, you've seen a lot of change.
The best thing that Trump has done, I think, was to stop the TPP and the climate change scam. All of that is just resource extraction from everyone, just to make us assets and resources. It's like when they changed personnel to human resources in the workplace, we became resources that they could use up and throw away. And that kind of attitude is like you said, it's reaching the end of that pendulum. Years ago, I don't remember the name of the company, but somewhere in Pennsylvania, there was a shoe company that employed basically this whole town, and they took care of their workers and as best they could. And they, it was run for the people that worked there as well as the stockholders and the people. It wasn't just to make as much as they could off you and exploit you. And it's come to the point where we're useless eaters. It's just like George, I can't remember his name, this Fabian socialist who said that a bunch of useless eaters, that he would like to see everybody brought up every year to say what they've done to justify their existence. And if they hadn't, off them. This was back in the 20s or 30s. He was interviewed saying that. Some playwright, I can't remember his name, but the psychopathy of these people goes way back, and I have seen it come to a head. That's true. I hope that something will happen that will prevent it from going to a war with Russia. It just seems that the deep state wants that, and after the Georgia war, then they had this Arab Spring where they started to destabilize everything across North Africa, actually beginning in the Western Sahara, south of Morocco, and then through Tunisia, and then he took out Libya because Gaddafi he was going to start a currency to try to bring Africa out of poverty, but no, we can't have that. We need to destroy the place and extract the resources. They even went to Gaddafi and told him, it might be prudent for you to convert your assets to gold. You might have to flee the country. And then so they came in and took all the gold after they killed him. It's very evil what's been going on. I mean, it is, like you said, reaching a peak there. And after the Arab Spring, then there was the whole coup in Ukraine, and things came to a head there pretty quickly. I don't know. It seemed to have quietened down a little bit, but I thought it might set off then. And they just keep pushing. They're building up on the border, and but I believe that there is a split there in the deep state after the Benghazi attack. That part of the military wanted to send rescue troops in. They wanted that they were watching what was happening, and they told them to stand down, and then they did this purge of the military. And I believe that there is a faction that doesn't want this to go to war, that they do want some sovereignty for the nation. They don't want to wipe everybody out. And I believe there is like a civil war taking place in the deep state since then. I've heard other things that have happened that I can't confirm, but I hope that will work out and we won't keep pushing it to war. When I felt a little bit of hope when Trump won the election, not that I was so much for Trump the man, but the fact that people were tired of the way that things have been going and voted for something different, for somebody who was telling them a little bit of the truth anyway. And
if we have an economic collapse, they're going to blame it on Trump, even if he doesn't have enough time to have been the cause of it. They're going to blame it on him, just as because they hate him, and
absolutely
deep state. But it may be coming. I mean, in the inevitable collapse of the USA government, when it does happen, just a lot of people are, just going to be stripped of, of all of these this power. But I mean, they don't want an economic collapse that the people could blame at the government. So if they can get into war, they can blame any economic difficulties on the war. And keep business as usual. That seems to be the game plan. And of course, the threat to the U.S. dollar that China and Russia are. And then, of course, we have Israel that is dead set on getting rid of Iran's sovereignty and breaking up Iran. Ultimately, they won't leave this alone. And we know Russia is going to stand by Iran. So, I don't know. Eventually, something's going
Yes,
to give, you know.
the stage is set, and I keep expecting it to wake up and it to be set off. I've been on edge for 10 years. Well, since 9/11, I was on edge a lot, but for 10 years, I expect something to set off. But
And when I mentioned Iran, for the last year and a half or so, they cooled on talking about it, and now suddenly, it's being talked about again. It's like there were too many other things going on with U.S. imperialism around the globe, where they needed a break for a little while from that or something, but then went right back to it, just like I expected they ultimately would. But
well,
yeah,
I believe that
we have a lot of war
conflict
hawks. A lot of war hawks as far as neocons and also Israel firsters who are like dual citizens. That between the two of them, I mean, they want war and will make the U.S. go into this ultimate war.
I believe that this conflict between Qatar and Saudi Arabia plays into that too. I'm not sure exactly. It's like a dispute between neighbors, and they start calling that a crisis when, the cholera and the famine in Yemen, that's a crisis, but they call this dispute, that's the crisis. It boggles the mind, the things that they do pay attention to on the mainstream media, but it also can give you a little bit of insight into what they're thinking, bringing Iran back up. Maybe they want to do something with that, since the ceasefire was agreed upon between the parties down in Daraa. I was reading that one faction of Hezbollah had stayed behind, and that was in violation of the agreement. And Israel was all up in arms about that, and they weren't even consulted about extending the ceasefire into the neighboring province in Canestri, I think is how pronounced, next to the Golan there, and that may be coming up to a head more now. I don't know.
Well, and they have no right to be in the Golan. That belongs to Syria, and they know it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just like, no, we're going to come in here and we're going to sell this oil, and there's nothing you're going to do about it because we're Israel and we have the U.S. behind us. So what are you going to do about that? It's
exactly.
so juvenile.
I agree. And it's just people. I don't. When I discuss this, I don't go around sounding like I've got a cold. How some people will go, a Jew. I want to go Gesundheit already. That doesn't explain everything, but that's part of it. With the fact that they are acting with impunity there, that they can violate international law, and they have nuclear weapons, and we don't discuss that. And we have these, and I don't believe a dual citizen from any country should have a security clearance in the United States or hold federal office.
Or in Congress. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that is part of the story. But I don't know if that will escalate between Israel and Syria. I think the fact that the proxies are being defeated more, and that Trump has cut off the funding to the rebels there, the training from the CIA, that there's going to be a shift. Something is going to change with that story. The biggest disappointment I had since the election was when he fired those missiles. I thought, no, you cannot believe that was Assad attacking his people with gas. He's just about to win, and now he's going to kill all these civilians with poison. Why?
All I can say about Trump, as the man, is that it seems he's surrounded by people lying to him with deep state agendas. They're not going to let him near, any sources of information that wouldn't be filtered. You probably can't even get a normal internet connection at the White House. It's all...
I suspect you're right. I see a parallel there with Ronald Reagan, and that scares me, because at the last minute of the convention, they co-opted Reagan to make him take H.W. Bush as the vice president. I read that the media threatened to sabotage his campaign completely unless he put him on the ticket. And then shortly after he was in office, they tried to kill him. And it's so funny that the day that Reagan was shot, they were having a continuity of government drill. It's just that things are not as they seem. It wasn't about Jodie Foster. It was about another coup. And Reagan went to a different hospital than they expected him to go to, and he survived. But I do believe that he was compromised from that day forward.
Definitely. George Herbert Walker Bush was, one of the people who was involved that day in the Kennedy assassination.
Yes,
way
I've
back
seen the
when.
picture.
So it's hard to believe that Ronald Reagan didn't have an intended attempt to place George there in power placed on him rather than anything that was random or accidental. And then as far as what we've been seeing with Trump now, who knows what's going to happen? You know, I mean, some people think his life could be in danger, but yeah, he a lot of people point out though the amount of people he's surrounded by, yet he's still considered a threat to a lot of. It seems like, you know, it depends on who you work for, whether or not he's a threat to you. You know, he's a threat to like a percentage, but not that huge a percentage. But it's a decent enough percentage, though, to threaten the establishment in a lot of different areas. That's maybe the best way to describe it. But it's been pointed out, there's a large amount of Zionists surrounding him.
Yes.
So, yeah, a lot of people think that basically he's going to stay very pro-Israel, and that includes any of Israel's war agendas. But
McMaster is a snake. I don't trust Pence, although he hasn't turned out as bad as I thought he would yet. But who knows? You know, I was very disappointed that Flynn was fired, but I think Flynn may have brought it on himself. I don't know that whole story, but that was a disaster when he was fired. And I don't know why Jeff Sessions recused himself. It's what it makes me think is that the deep state has the dirt on everybody, and that they're controlling them that way. And if they get out of hand, like Seth Rich or whoever, they'll just knock them off. I don't know what will happen with Trump. My hope is that it's not Trump the man that is the real threat to the deep state, but Trump the idea that we have a voice and that we matter, that we're going to go down fighting, that maybe we will come back from this. That I hope that's what is happening, and even if they kill Trump, that we'll come back stronger. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but it's a very interesting time to be alive in history.
I agree with you there completely.
Yeah, and you're right. I saw it from when I was born, and I'm amazed more and more every day at what happens, and I don't know what will come next. I hope that something can be done to take back our sovereignty, to turn this back into a nation again instead of just a corporation, that enough people realize that we're slaves to the money masters. I don't believe that there are any military, political, or economic solutions to the problems of the humans and universe. That just is not what's going to fix it. I don't know if it can be fixed. I just think
maybe we need to evolve. We need time to evolve to a certain level before it can be fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, the human condition, you know, even the best of us, fall every once in a while into old patterns and, focusing on things that we usually disapprove of or try to change from.
Yes, I'm very guilty of that.
But, I mean, when you can recognize that and when you can, take steps, at times against it, I think it makes all the difference. I mean, like you say, the people in power, I mean, these are, there's a definite psychopathy in most of the leaders of the planet. That's dead on, and that's a very big issue. I think that's what might be, just something that most people can't really comprehend. How can these people be so good at presenting a false front?
Well, I think they're groomed from an early age too. That the skull and bones and the secret societies. It's a very small club, and we ain't in it, as George Carlin said. That's part of it, and most people, I believe, the majority of people, no matter what race or creed or whatever, they just want a better life for their kids, and they want to be happy. They don't want to rule and control. There's a small percentage of sociopaths who have absolutely no empathy for anyone else. And they don't see you as a person. They see you as a bicycle. You're a thing for them to use. And those are the people who tend to gain power. And we've been at their mercy for a long time.
Yeah, this divide and conquer, I wouldn't exist among the people without an outside propagandist. I mean, people may have their opinions on different things, sexuality, culture, race, sexuality, in different forms, different political
and religion. Religion is the
and economic. But they'll say, we can, you can have yours over there, I can have mine over here. Most people would go trying to kill most of the planet for their agendas.
No.
If left to their own devices. It's generally this subclass of psychopathy. Many of the ultra wealthy think that they're a separate species. They're that
absolutely
much.
Absolutely do. Yes, they actually believe that, and it's almost like they are demons. I don't know if that's the case, but they certainly act like them. A lot of them do. It's very rare that there's someone that is very wealthy that wants to help the rest of the planet, help other people. The fellow that made the movie Armageddon seemed to want to do good when he was flying into Haiti. The guy I forgot his name. He started Curves, but they started all these foundations that gave them the front of respectability and philanthropy as a way to avoid taxes. Ford and Rockefeller, Carnegie, all that, and they used all that money to try to enslave the planet even more and extract even more resources from us. In a way, the nation states have just been the matrix that they've used on us to extract wealth for themselves, pitting us against each other. And I don't know how to break out of that. Like you said, maybe we have to evolve or change beyond just being a predatory species, monkeys with guns. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that maybe, we're not all at the exact same level, So it's a various, different amount that, different individuals will learn in this lifetime here, have a potential to get to as a state of consciousness, state of mind. But you can't expect the whole race or civilization to in our lifetime change completely.
No, I've seen a lot of changes, but people have to a large degree devolved, I think, and gotten even more self-centered and isolated and depressed.
But maybe we have to accept that, accepting, that is part of it. It's unfortunate, but the more you can become more enlightened, you can't help but see that some aren't,
Yes, I believe it really is a spiritual battle. It's not the things that we have, but how we treat each other that lasts. That's what remains. And I taken me a long time to get there, but
you have to balance how much. Yeah, you mentioned you have grandchildren even.
Yes.
Think about the future,
Exactly.
Even if you're past your lifetime and hope it'll be good for these people.
Yeah. Yes, they're awesome, man. Earlier today, I was watching the 8-month-old in his bouncy seat, just bouncing up and down and up and down. And then the 3-year-old was climbing on the back of the couch and jumping like Geronimo out of an airplane onto the couch. It was awesome. It really, just remembering that gives me a really good feeling. And
you want that to remain in the culture,
And I can't relate to anyone who doesn't feel that way. These people who just see the world as their plaything and their God. They think they themselves are gods. And I can't relate to anyone who is that way, and I don't know how to fight them. I don't think we can fight them on a physical level and win. We just have to fight them by doing the best we can and treating each other as we want to be treated. Aleister Crowley has to say that do as thou wilt would be the whole of the law. I think it should be do as thou wilt be done unto should be the answer to that as the whole of the law, and just hope for the best. That's the distillation of everything I've learned in my life so far.
Yeah, it's for us to evolve it as much as we can as an individual in this lifetime, spend the time divided among the things we've decided to value. But everyone else has to in their own time or not maybe get very far in this lifetime, but it's a lesson for them and others, like what their role is here right now, So you can only hate them so far, even the worst.
Exactly. I believe that whatever we are, it's not what we see and feel and touch. It is some kind of spirit, what we do.
Consciousness. It's a universal consciousness, definitely, that we all have a single, a variation reflection of to help create this reality.
I remember back reading about an experiment that was done back in the 1970s by a fellow in Germany he built one of the best photo multipliers in the world at the time. And he took a leaf that was alive. He just plucked it in a wooden match, and he put it in this black box and turned on the computer to see if anything came out, and photons were emitted from that living leaf. DNA itself, it was discovered, emits light at an ultraviolet frequency, and DNA shines like the stars when it's alive. And I read some other articles about that. I don't know what other research has been done since then, but it tells me that there's something about life that's different than the rest of all these things, that everything is connected somehow. The religious beliefs I once had, I don't adhere to anymore, but I can't help but there's something more, that we're here for some reason. It's not just to be resources for these evil masters. There's something else here. And the best I've been able to do is to just, when I'm able to be of service to someone else, it gives me it does me more good. I feel better about that. And when I exploit someone and take advantage of them, man, I feel bad. I don't, it's like some people, the ones that are in power, are the opposite of that. I think it should be the other way around. And I don't know how to bring that about. I think we can only do that on a micro level. And if we do that enough, then maybe some things will change. I don't know.
Certainly. Yeah. Your immediate universe, as it were, you can be one of those early examples, basically. And sometimes that's what you're intended. But yeah, well, you mentioned then, I know in your profile as well, a lot of references to mysticism, the occult. I think alchemy you mentioned.
Yes.
So you notice these energies, though. You can appreciate a lot of these things, it sounds like.
Yeah, I was a nerd. I was constantly reading for 50 years. Every time I got a chance, I was just curious wanted to know more about stuff. I had a curious mind, and there's always more to know. That's the only thing I've learned is really that there's always more to know. And I can take pleasure in that. If I get hung up on the way things are and what's really behind the scenes, it can be very depressing. Being able to discuss it with someone, just you and me, this helps. This is catharsis. And
that's excellent. I think
yeah.
you're going to help a lot of listeners out there. I'm sure a lot of listeners have appreciated your interview here, and I think they'll appreciate me having you back. We'll definitely.
Oh, great.
Love to have you back.
I've enjoyed it a lot. My buddy just texted me and he said he sent in $40. Everybody, listen, send your shekels to Truth Cat Radio. They really need the support.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank him for us. Definitely. That's excellent. So yeah, I think, keep doing this. By all means, we'll have you back on. And yeah, I think that's one way you can reach out to people. I'm glad I was cathartic with the interview for you.
Oh yes, it's great. I didn't know if I could, I haven't done this before. I did a little radio show back in the 80s on a college station, but it was, just playing music and comments in between. And I have considered doing something like this because it seems like this is the best thing I have to offer, is what I've learned about all that's behind the scenes, and try to wake people up to how they're being exploited. I don't know exactly how to fight it, but if we come together, we can figure out a way to beat these people. I'm sure we can. They just want to keep us isolated and alone and convince us that we're alone and we have no power and that we are just their resources. It's like they're vampires feeding off of us. And somehow we have to stop that. I don't know exactly how, but at times like this, when I'm talking to someone like you and I have a little hope. Just out in the world and not.
I'm sorry. It just sounded, Richard. I heard Steven say that his buddy was saying $40, and then Richard said, "Keep doing this. We'll have you back on." I'm like, "What?" Just like,
no. No, he had mentioned that he might have me back on before that earlier.
Well,
yeah.
It almost seems like you've been on already once before. You haven't been on before, have you?
No, never.
Well, gosh. Well, I'm sure you will be back on.
Well, great. I'd like to do this. I'll try to get a place set up where I can be more comfortable to do it. I borrowed a laptop for this, but yeah. And I'll try to be better prepared for things to cover. It's just initially we were going to talk about the AquaTech incident, and that
Yes.
was a real turning point in my life, But
yeah. Hey, Steven, what did you think about his AquaTech story? You have any question for him?
Well, I don't know. Was he talking about it when I was running for that hard drive?
No.
I mean,
At the
Richard,
beginning.
listen, I've been fighting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been enjoying the whole show. I'm just telling you, I was just fighting freeway traffic and standing in 20-minute lines in the store, and all I can say is once I got to the counter, all the guy had to do is turn around, walk into the cage, grab the silly box with the hard drive in it, and give it to me. I was like, wow, it's just getting to that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Huh. I'm spoiled now. I'm like, oh my God, I want another one. But yeah, thanks for being on, Steven. Yeah, this is always very stressful when things are slow, and sorry for screwing up the beginning of your show and all that. But Richard, you've got at least about 4 minutes or 5 minutes here if you want to close out before I play the music and stuff.
Okay. Well, yeah. Once again, it was great to have you on. We will have you back on, Steven. And yeah. Thank you. It's definitely, I think, something that the listeners benefited from. And
I hope so. I've really enjoyed doing it, and I'd like to do it again. I had this thought earlier while I was watching the grandkids, and I wrote this down as, if you were born into a world of made, do not despair. You are not alone. There are others who were born into the world of made, and though delayed, our allegiance is coming. And the world of born, it was torn from the stars, and we will shine long after the world of made is rust and dust.
Hey,
thanks again, Richard.
And I hope your buddy doesn't mind, but shout out to John Baxter.
Oh no, thanks a lot, John.
Yes, thank you indeed, John.
Thanks, guys. I'll be in touch. Thanks very much for having me on.
Sure.
All right.
Sounds great.
I'll let you close.
Okay. Have a great night. And yes, to all you listeners out there, as Steven and I were mentioning, we do need to keep positive. There are more people waking up, and I keep thinking back to those fax machines in the USSR just before the collapse, and what the internet has become for us now, even in a greater capacity, to get to a culmination, to truly change things. But you do have to work on your own progress, and be okay if a lot of the others are lagging behind. Don't let that make or break your ability to enjoy this existence, even if there is a battle. Well, stick around. Stephen D. Kelly with the Steven D. Kelly Show is coming up next in just a few minutes. I'd like to thank JP again and say hello to everyone over at Wolf Spirit Radio. Thank you for your simulcast. We do appreciate all of your listenership and getting a lot more people to hear a lot of these guests and their stories. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Thank you again. This has been Beyond the Matrix with Richard Kary. And I do, just want everyone to keep positive and like our Facebook pages. And if you can help out, once again, we do have PayPal on our support page, www.truthcatradio.com. And Steven should be coming up in just a few moments. So like I said, we'll be signing off here, but stick around for his show. Until next week, transcend the construct. Regards.